This is traditional Alaska. And this is the modern version. America's biggest state stretches into the Arctic Circle and boasts terrain and snow conditions that have given the region unrivaled status in winter sports. Alaska's Chugach Mountains provide the ultimate challenge for freeride skiers and snowboarders. The first adventurers came to the frozen tundra looking for gold and oil. But these days, a new breed of prospectors travel north in such numbers that winter sees the population double in this, one of the world's most inhospitable corners. If you ask any proficient snowboarder what their ultimate place to ride is, and the answer is inevitably going to be Alaska. The image it conjures up is of miles and miles of untracked powder and unridden mountains. Now, there is actually one ski resort here, Alaskan, and it's meant to be fantastic for snowboarding, but we're here at the beginning of the winter and I'm going to experience it just like the locals do. So that's why I'm heading off to a small port called Valdez, where life has a different pace and a different meaning.
You see a lot of different footage of real good snowboarders in terrain like this, and the kids see it and they see these top movies with these guys, and all they see is the run. They don't see what goes in it to make that run happen. We'd like to be able to do that run, but we're also willing to camp out in the conditions, sleep there if that's what it takes, and hopefully it's bluebird in the morning and you wake up and everything's safe and it's a go, and you know, it's better than the movie.
Alaska boasts the highest peaks in North America and the most desolate. The real Alaska is accessible only by helicopter or hiking, and the local riders, so experienced in these wild mountain conditions, are among the very best in the world. What Hawaii is to surfing, Alaska is to snowboarding. This place is absolutely huge, with snow conditions the likes of which most people can only ever dream of. Showing us around the place are three local riders, Gideon, Elkie, and their best friend and true-blooded Eskimo snowboarder, Dale Brower. This is Valdez, home for Gideon, Elkie, and Dale. This far north, the climate is as extreme as the terrain that surrounds the town. Alaska is the land of the midnight sun, and for 2 months in the summer, it never sets. In the winter, the northern half of the state experiences 2 months of perpetual darkness, the sun never rising above the horizon. My guides have promised to take me to some of their favourite backcountry runs, but before then we'll be trying out the state's one and only resort, Alaska, to prepare for the kind of snowboarding conditions that at this stage I can barely imagine. As they explained over drinks before we set off, life and snowboarding are very different in Alaska.
Here is the place to snowboard, let's say, for intensity, for getting to be a very good snowboarder, and for the intensity of the experience. It's really raw. The people that are out on the mountain they're hardcore, they're fanatics. And you know, it depends on your taste. Some people like snowboarding where there are beautiful groomed runs in parks and great weather, like in California or like in Colorado, but for us, I mean, this is the place.
And for you, Dale, not too many Eskimo folk riding snowboards.
Just his little brothers.
Yeah, there's a couple, but yeah, not doing this the big stuff.
How does that relate to your life, pretty much as living the traditional life, being a hunter? You must have your mindset in a different way to the likes of me.
Pretty much live depending on the weather. You're praying to the weather god for, like, you know, maybe a good hunting day, just like snowboarding, you know. You're waiting for that day, but
working with Mother Nature pretty much, and going with whatever she dictates is, up here it's a different way of living because of the winter-summer contrast, you know. What we do is we work all summer to do what we do all winter. So we've got so much daylight in the summer, you can work long hours and make sure that you've got that time in the winter.
What are you? Are you Alaskans or are you Americans?
Alaska. Definitely.
No question about that.
Like, you know, because when I went to Whistler, they're the Southerners. And when I met my first Canadian snowboarders, and they're like, where are you guys from? You're not from America, but you speak English and you don't have an accent, you know, you've got this American accent. We're from Alaska. Oh. And then they have a respect because that's more north than them. You know, they think they're north. Well, hey, we're north. And it doesn't, where he's from, you can't get any more north. You're visiting Santa.
Life for Dale in his hometown of Barrow is hard, a year-round cycle of hunting and basic survival. Yet Dale is unique within his culture and will be the first Inuit Eskimo to enter the world's premier extreme snowboard event, the King of the Hill, held in Valdez later on this year. Skiers made the first turns in the Chugach Mountains, though there are still countless peaks across the vast wilderness that remain untracked by either skier or snowboarder. In Alaska, scale is everything. Look across the mountain tops and eventually you'll find a lone figure somewhere among the 39 separate mountain ranges that stretch north of Anchorage. Alaska has one resort, Alaska, an hour's drive from the state capital. Carved out of the forest and surrounded by those intimidating Chugach Mountains, it's a kind of base camp for the steeps and gullies that lie beyond. At this time of year, daylight is limited, and the morning ski lift service doesn't open till 10:30 or later. But believe me, it's worth the wait. You don't have to risk life and limb to experience the unique atmosphere and conditions of Alaska. Dale and his friends are typical of the new generation of Alaskans who have seen snowboard culture spread north from mainstream America to their own remote place on the map. But one thing that is different about snowboarding this far north is that the local riders always set off for the mountain equipped for the worst. A backpack containing a shovel, extra clothing, and a transceiver that sends out a signal if you get caught in an avalanche are part of every rider's basic kit. And even here on the Peace of Alaska, we were prepared for just about any outcome. What kind of run have we just done? Let me tell you.
Yeah, all POW, untracked, top to bottom runs. The only time you stop is when you wreck, and that's as least as possible. You couldn't ask for a better training ground as far as moving on to bigger mountains, such as Valdez, because this is just practice for the real thing. The real thing's in Valdez, but you couldn't ask for a better training ground. Outside in the backcountry right now, and like in Valdez where we were, the snow conditions in the snowpack was really, really unstable, which prohibited us from getting up into the higher elevations just for safety purposes. But here you can come. The terrain's really, really similar to what we were looking for in Valdez, but they control it to where it's safe participate and to have a really, really good time. And it's a lot easier to ride confident when you know that what you're riding on isn't going to break loose and it's going to be consistent.
What was that like?
Whew. Yeah, it was really deep. A lot of powder turns to where if you're carving and you're trying to breathe at the same time and you hit that carve of powder, that's all you're gonna be breathing is snow, because I was having a hard time breathing coming down.
And seeing's not too easy either.
No, but it doesn't really matter because everything's so filled in and soft. If you just point it straight and keep your knees bent, you just skip off of things. You don't really need to see.
This powder to me is absolutely unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen so much snow. Is this totally unusual for this time of year? Or?
It is. There's years where we won't get snow like this, you know, for a long time. It'll just be icy and blue skies and not a lot of snow. But typically it's real deep around here, real deep.
One last thing. Where's them polar bear gloves? Check these out.
They smell.
What's the story behind these, Dale?
Basically, these are polar bear gloves, and they're made for the really extreme cold weather situations, so you don't get frostbite or anything, because you know you got to have your hands. So I don't know, they're fashionable.
They certainly are. Did you kill that one yourself?
No, but someday I'll make my own.
As the light closed in, we kept on riding, and I was happy for the practice because tomorrow we'd be heading for the backcountry.
If you're coming to Alaska to go snowboarding, bring your legs, bring your lungs, bring your big boards.
It's pretty remote, pretty desolate. I mean, you're probably talking maybe 10, 20 vehicles drive by there a day, you know, in the middle of the winter. There's always a possibility of avalanches and stuff. There's no avalanche control. There's no ski patrol, basically. There's nobody that's gonna go up there and save you, you know, if you're by yourself.
At first light, the skies are clear, but local riders have come to expect the unexpected. Above the exposed shores of the Gulf of Alaska, the weather can change in minutes. Setting off at last for the open mountains, conditions had taken a turn for the worst. When the storms come in, it becomes impossible to reach the higher peaks around Valdez.
You gonna go down the road run? All right.
The road run is one of Alaska's many hidden secrets. There are no lift systems in this part of the world, so in bad weather, this route comes into its own.
You know, after big storms up here in these mountains, we like to go out with groups, and we also like to do it, you know, very safely. Some of these lower little valleys and in some of these little ravines here, we're going to probably find it's pretty deep, a lot of powder snow. Hope we brought our big boards today, because we're going to need them.
Gut feeling is usually always right up here. If something doesn't feel quite right, it's usually not. It's not a game, you know, you gotta take it very seriously up here. It could be the best day of your life, or it could also be the last.
The road run may not be the highest in Alaska, but it's still full of rocks, gullies and 30-foot cliff drops to test the most experienced rider. So for this trip, we were joined by Valdez guide Tony Mann and a group of other riders from around Valdez, including one of the region's true snowboard veterans, Donnie Mills. Donnie shapes and builds the snowboards that many Alaskans use in the deep powder of the Chugach Range. The boards are much longer and wider than standard to give the riders extra stability and to help the board float over the snow. This is vital on the road running conditions that Donnie knows better than most.
Back when I was in high school, there was like 3 people that first found that run and cut it out. And since then we've been maintaining it, all of the skiers and stuff from around here. And so we go up there every summer and cut on it and try and keep it maintained. I never can go fast enough. And so I like really big boards.
So the theory being the longer and bigger the board.
The bigger the board is, the faster you're going to get.
Okay, Gideon, so we were going to go out hiking, break a few trails, go up the mountain. Things have changed, I guess.
Yeah, well, sometimes the weather moves in a little quicker than we thought, but from what we hear, this is going to be a quick system. It's going to come and go. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have clear skies. But, you know, a lot of times the clouds come in like this, you still have the road run. You know, as you can see, you've got the trees for depth. You get up into the higher elevations, it's nothing but snow fields. So what the car can do is start at the bottom, bring you to the top, drive back down, and you meet it. You know, you take the short way down.
So you're cutting, yeah, straight down the hill when the car's going all the way around. What are we likely to expect?
Here it's kind of hard because you're always getting shut out by a tree or something, but when it's this deep, you've got to be going fast, you know, in order to plane up and float. But hey, nobody's complaining about it, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, it was beautiful this morning, but typically when the clouds roll in, we get the snow. And it's all good, because it's just going to get deeper.
By now, the snow was driving horizontally across the mountain, and visibility was down to a matter of feet. But these are normal days in the early winter here in Valdez, and we headed off in weather that would have caused any normal resort to close for the day. Visibility was getting worse. While Gideon and Dale set off into the gloom, Tony was showing Elkie a safe way down through the trees and unpredictable snow conditions.
Right here, boom, boom, and then see down there, you got a drop, it rolls, and then there's a good roll. It's hard to see, but that's like a little half pipe.
Because it's my first time, like if I got to do this run again, I'd probably go double speed. Because the first time you do it, you never know exactly what's over the roll. And you can see from above, there'll be like a compression. And you don't know if you go at it too fast, you might not have the strength to resist the compression, and you might get stuck in the bottom and have to hike out.
Leapfrog, Elkie, leapfrog. Good job, good job.
But when we got up to the top, it was kind of sketchy because at that point, Tony told me that there are these giant sharp sticks that are like 4 feet long, sticking from the base, from the ground into the snow, and they're covered, and not to fall, because if you fall, you can get stuck by one. So all of a sudden I visualized making a turn in, the whole thing sliding and like tumbling through these, you know, through these sharp sticks. So I took it really slow at the beginning.
To be honest, I've never really hung out with snowboarders who go out every day with their helmets on and their backpacks and their shovels, and they're out there and you're on the mountain, you're so serious.
When it snows, it's like this. But there's times when Alaska gets just cold and clear and hard ice. But so you take these days when you can.
It doesn't matter if there's no visibility, because it's so deep. You just point it, because that's the only choice you have anyway.
feet in the air, and I'm probably one of the luckiest people alive at this particular moment in time. This is where the word extreme really comes home, isn't it? Right. It's like...
Well, that's the thing, is that, you know, sure, the terrain is steep, there's lots of rocks, what we call exposure. I mean, and it's not just in snowboarding, as far as Alaska's concerned, the hunting, the fishing, you know, the working, because it's all pretty extreme.
You brought a longer board, yeah?
What's going on up there?
We're getting very large amounts of snow falling onto the ground. Wasn't too good yesterday, but it's good today because it's just filling in.
We went up the top. We've done this the third time we've done this run. Gone pretty much down the same bit every time. You can't see any of the tracks from the last run.
Yeah.
And I've never seen snow conditions like that in my entire life. And it's your locals, and you get it all the time.
Elk's about 5 feet. What are you about?
5'1 3/4".
We'll say 5'2". We'll round up 5'2". And at times the only thing I saw was the top of her head. That was it, really. It was the top of her head.
Oh man, Alaska. What can you say?